Hi, my name is Rebecca Thompson Hitt. I'm the founder and executive director of the Consciously Parenting Project. And I'm here to talk about our 2-year training program. And I'm excited that you're interested in learning a little bit more. So I'm going to talk about what this 2-year process looks like, talk a little bit about who it's going to be a good fit for, so that you can know whether it's you or whether it's not. I really want to help people to be clear. And I'm also open to a conversation one-on-one to just see if it feels like a good fit for you. So just send me an email and let me know if you want to have a conversation about it. So I have been running the Consciously Parenting Project now for almost 10 years. And I have, over the years, been asked multiple times if I do some sort of a training program. And a couple of years ago, I did a beta program with 3 people because I wanted to get an idea of what people needed to know, how they needed to learn it. And so I did that process. And so now I'm ready to offer it on a bigger scale. So I am looking for 20 people who are, so that the group is small enough that we can really get to know one another. This is a group process. This is about you having the experiences of being in relationship, in connection, learning these ideas, learning your own story, learning your family's story. And then if you choose, you can go off into the world and you can run community groups. I'll have opportunities through my website for parenting support, for groups. And whether you want to do that or you want to, work in your own community, I'm going to be listing everybody that I certify, because I always have people who are looking for somebody local. And I would love to provide that. I think there's nothing better than having somebody that you can actually sit in the same room with and learn and experience and be with, because we need so much more of that. So this is one thing that I think I can do to help to create more community, more spaces that are safe for families and for parents, because we are so under-supported. We all need that. So it's this whole thing that I'm doing has multiple layers to it. And the middle layer is an opportunity for you to connect with other people, yourself, in that process, for you to understand who you are, what you need, what your story is, how you show up, the things that you get stuck in, learning how to move through those in relationship, in connection. Most of us have had the experiences of growing up in an environment for one reason or another where our parents didn't know how to do this. I mean, their parents didn't do this for them, and so we get into these spaces where we don't know how to move through this stuff. We don't know how to be in connection. We don't know how to navigate boundaries. We don't know what a healthy attachment looks like or feels like. And so we're going to create a community of support for your own process, for you to discover yourself, for you to learn. And the way that we're going to do this, the process, I'm going to kind of stand back a little bit and just give you a little bit more information about what this process is going to look like, to see if it feels like a good fit for you. So we'll have about 10 hours of content a month. And that is including time on the forums where you may have some questions that I'll put out to you and then you can discuss as a group. There will be audios that I record for you, maybe some videos that are specific for this training that will help you to go deeper, to connect with the processes that I recommend, that I've found helpful for many, many, many families, and then you can experience them, and then we'll have conversations about what that's like for you. But one of the main components is called a healing story circle. And a healing story circle is one of the core elements of my work. And it's based on the work of Ray Castellino, who is the founder of something called BEBA, Building and Enhancing Bonding and Attachment. And BEBA is all about creating connections within families and in groups. And one of the things that he does is that he has a 5-step process that he uses for creating a safe space where everyone can slow down together, get into what he calls harmonic resonance. And it's a process where everybody has the opportunity to speak. And then instead of, okay, so somebody says, I tried to slow down and I noticed that, it was really, really, really hard for me to slow down. And I felt this panic and this anxiety. And so in a regular group of people, if you had a group of people you could say that in, the response very well likely would be in one way or another, oh yeah, that reminds me of my own story. And now we've lost the plot. Now that opportunity for, you who's having this experience with this is lost because now we've moved on to somebody else. And so it's, instead of moving on to somebody else, it's this process of reflecting back. Well, what I heard you say was, and it isn't word for word, and there's a specific process that we use, but what that does is it creates the space for each person to find their own voice, their own story, and make sense and come to their own conclusions, find their own answers, because we all have a different story. We all have there's never one size fits all answer. It's never, well, all you need to do is, it's never that simple. And this is about creating a space for a safe, healthy relationship. And so in that process, we learn everything else. And so as you go through the process, I'm going to talk about the different modules because they're each 6 months long. And then we're going to talk about each one. Each module has different goals and objectives and things that you're going to be learning about. And we're going to be taking these to the Healing Story Circles. I've had a lot of people inquiring from South Africa. I've got some people in England. I have people across the US and some other countries in Central and South America who are interested in this program. So what we're going to do is we're going to, within our group, decide what days and times work best for us as a group. So it's not like, okay, well, you need to be able to be there on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And, that may or may not work. So we're going to take the people who are part of this process, and I need you to at least find one time that can work for you. We'll do 2 a month. One will be daytime Eastern and one will be nighttime Eastern, which, depending upon where you live in the world, will correlate, hopefully, with a morning time for you or an evening time for you. So the idea is that we'll all have this space to gather. You'll have a circle, and you can go to both if it works for you, but I want to make sure you at least get one. You're also part of my learning center, my learning, and so you've got access to all of my learning materials and resources, and then you also have access to a couple of other healing story circles as a part of this process. So you'll have 4 a month that will be possibilities for you. And so I just need to make sure that you make it into at least one and at least one of the training modules. And then if you want to go to any other ones, you're welcome to as well. It's just another layer of support for you to do your own processing, to have your own story, your own voice, and to practice the reflective listening, because that's such a big part. Basically, we want to be able to do that in our own families. If we have had the experience of being heard, being seen, being felt, then we can go into our families and we can do the same thing. And if we are a professional and we want to go into the bigger world, then we can also use that same skill for reflecting back and helping people to find their own way. So I want to take a couple of minutes and talk about the different modules, because I think it's important that you understand the lay of the land, the big picture of what we're doing here. So if you're familiar with my books, we're basically going to be going through the 4 of them. And if you're really paying attention, I've only written 3 and published 3. I'm working on the 4th one right now. So you'll be getting that as soon as it's available in whatever form it's available as part of the training. I do require that you have, purchase or have access to my books. It doesn't matter, audiobook, they're on my website. The paper books are available through Amazon. And then I also have a PDF. So if you live in South Africa, for example, and getting the physical book is a hardship, then getting the, because I live in a place right now where mail is kind of a hard thing. I get it, and international postage and all of that. So whatever it is, but you just need a copy because you're going to need to be referring to it. So there'll be reading that you need to do. I'll also be pointing you to other resources within my learning center. And some of them that may be part of your assignment is to go and watch. But a lot of what I'm going to have you do is observing yourself, is going out into the world and observing patterns that you see out in the world. There's a lot of reflective pieces to this process because I need you to be able to self-reflect. I need you to be able to look at what's happening either outside of yourself or within your family, and be able to name it, to be able to process that in some way, so that you don't get stuck when somebody else, whether it's your child or whether it is someone in your community or a client, is in their own stuff, and you recognize what belongs to you and what belongs to them. Got to be clear on your own story. So as we go through everything, at its core, we got to understand what your story is. You've got to know your story, and you got to know your family's story. So when I say story, I'm talking about the things that have happened to us prior to conception, perhaps, at conception, all the way through pregnancy, at birth, all the way through our childhood, the patterns of relationship that we have, the stories that we have encoded in our bodies, in our nervous systems, the way that we show up. Whether we tend to respond to things with anxiety, whether we charge right into something, whether when we get into a conflict we pull back and we don't say something, or whether we charge right in and plow over the other person. Whatever those patterns are, we need to be aware of those patterns, so that we can then make healthy decisions about those patterns, about who we are. So I have 4 books, as I said. The first book is Consciously Parenting, What It Really Takes to Raise Emotionally Healthy Families. And that's the 8 guiding principles of consciously parenting. We're going to be looking at attachment. We're going to be looking at your attachment. We're going to be looking at your kids' attachment. We're going to be looking at the story of your family, of your relationships, so that you can understand how these pieces have come together. And you're going to have a lot of ahas. This is part of this process, is weeding it out. And even if your kids are grown, it's still that process of recognizing. Now, if you don't have kids, you still were a kid once. And so you have a story. You still have relationships with other people. You still have patterns that are happening. And so whether you're actively parenting, whether you're not, whether you don't have kids, all of these things are going to be part of it. And the other really cool piece is that you're going to be watching other people process. You're going to be watching other people move through this. And that's a big part of this whole experience, is because many times it is easier to see it in somebody else. It is easier to look at somebody else's pattern and say, oh, I wonder what happened when you were little. I wonder if you had an experience where blah, 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 blah. This is what I'm seeing. And it's not that we have to know what all of those things are, but it's that curiosity. It's that curiosity about somebody else's story that's going to help you to be curious about your own. Someone else might see something in your story that you don't yet see. And that's the really cool thing about the group dynamics. As I said, we have a forum. It's a private forum specifically for our group. And so no one else has access to this. And so the idea is to be able to go in and see what you need, and be able to find other people to have conversations with that are all learning the same thing at the same time. So I'm excited about that process too. You're going to have many layers of opportunity to process on your own and in connection, both live with video, which all of our healing story circles didn't say that, video chat, so you can see everybody else, which is really important to the process. You can watch and you can really be seen, and you can see other people in that process. So 4 modules. The first one is consciously parenting. And as we go through the 8 guiding principles, you're really going to be embodying that. We're going to be discussing it in those healing story circles. The second 6 months is early life patterns. It's based on my second book, which is called Creating Connection. And in this, we're going to be talking about the idea of imprints. And imprints are the patterns in our nervous system. So this isn't just, oh yeah, something sucky happened, and I'm stuck with it. It's recognizing the pattern in your nervous system that's showing up now and working with that pattern in the present so that you can move through it and out of it. And that also comes back to our healing story circles. So you're going to have the opportunity to really connect with others and share the stories and share the patterns, because the way that you show up in the present moment shows those patterns in your nervous system. So the imprints are what they're called. So we're going to be studying the imprints. We're going to look at the imprints of your kids as well. The imprints at conception, the imprints during pregnancy, the imprints at birth, the imprints after birth. And imprints happen anytime, the first time we experience something. So we're going to be going pretty deep in that second module. So the first module is really getting our foundation. It's really, these are our guiding ideas. It's all about connection. It's all about the relationship. And what does the relationship look like? In the second module, we're going to be going deeper into patterns of relationship on the nervous system at the level of imprint, and how those patterns are repeated over and over again. We'll use healing story circles to move through those. And you'll also have a little bit of guidance for helping your kids. If you have kids, if you're actively parenting, if your kids are older, to look at their own imprints and to move through them. And I'm going to give you lots of resources and ways that you can do that, because there's no one way to do this. So my job is to give you lots of resources so that you can move through it, and then have those resources in your back pocket, so that when you're working with either your own family or you're working within your community, you've got these tools to help you. So my third book is called Nurturing Connection, and that's about the day-to-day parenting. That's about really learning to take care of yourself. That's about modeling that for our kids. That's about nurturing parenting at all phases of life, nurturing ourselves. And in that module, we're really going to be taking a close look at what we learned and kind of unlearning some of those things about self-care. Then we'll move into our final module, which is repairing or healing connection. And that's my fourth book. That's the one I'm working on now. And we're going to be focusing on when big things happen. And we're going to be looking at 2 layers of this. And the first one is when big things happen and there's already a good connection or a secure attachment. And so how do we move through that together? And then we're going to be looking at what happens when there's not a secure attachment, and how do we create connection and healing in the process of moving through the loss, the divorce, the adoption, the whatever it was that happened. And so it's this bigger picture of healing relationships on a really deep level, because there's a lot of thought that if there's something happened, or if we messed it up, or if we didn't connect in the beginning for whatever reason, that it's over. And it's just not true. Healing and connection can happen within ourselves at any time, and it can happen in relationship at any time. And so we're going to be looking at how that happens. And again, we're going to be coming back to the healing story circles. We will be looking at working one-on-one with people, and we'll take volunteers. And we also have the opportunity, they're not required, but they're optional, of in-person retreats. I have one coming up on the Carnival Paradise. It's a lovely, lovely opportunity to go on a ship and go on a cruise. And it's only 4 days. It's over a long weekend. And the idea is that we'll have spaces for our healing story circles where we can connect with one another and learn different processes. And if you're in the training and you go on the cruise, then you'll have the opportunity to practice some of this with the families who are attending, who aren't necessarily in the training. So a big part of this training is understanding behavior, understanding your own behavior, understanding your kids' behavior. It's about boundaries, healthy boundaries. What do they look like? What do they feel like? And we'll be navigating that in the group. All of these things we're going to be working on in relationship with one another, because it doesn't make sense to do it out of relationship. We're going to be looking at regulation and, calming our nervous systems, and that it isn't about being calm all the time, but how do we move through that? How do we navigate it when we're having big emotions? What about survival when we're in that survival place? So this opportunity is for you to join us. Again, it's 2 years, so it's a big commitment, but I really feel like it takes that amount of time to really internalize what we're talking about. And you have the opportunity, as parents, as professionals, as members within your own community, as individuals, to do a deep level of healing with one another that is part of this ripple that we need to send out into the world. So the benefits are numerous. They're benefits for you in connecting more deeply with yourself, knowing your story, connecting more deeply in your family, knowing who your kids really are, being able to see them for who they are, not for who you want them to be. And in that being seen is this opportunity for really, really deep connection. So we're starting Monday, July 24th, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks. And I'm really excited to get started. So the time commitment, about 1.5 hours per week, some being a little bit longer. So I'm estimating about 10 hours a month. And, some of that is just on your own. It's not, and now you have to sit down and watch this video, but it's, observation, it's noticing, it's, so I'm guessing it's going to be about 10 hours, but about 1.5 hours, of content, either the healing story circles, which are 90 minutes. So you're going to have the opportunity for 2 of those a month, as part of the training, and you've got opportunity for more. And then there'll be audios for you to watch as well. So financial commitment is actually, for what this is, I'm really offering a good deal on this right now, because I really, this is my first training. This is my beta. And so I'm going to be learning from you just as I'm you're learning from me. And so if you want to do one-time payment for all of it, then it's $1,997 US. If you'd like to make 4 payments, so that'll be done at the start of each module, it's $557. So it's less than $100 a month, which for this level of training is, I charge more than that for an hour of one-on-one time with me. And then if you want to do a monthly payment plan, it's $107. I have some administrative fees and costs that are associated with that monthly payment. So it's $107 a month, US dollars. And these are options for you. I am offering a limited number of work exchanges. So if you have a financial need, if you're living in a country where the exchange rate sucks, then let's talk and we can work it out so that you can make a smaller payment, and then in exchange for writing or there's lots and lots of things that I need some help with to grow social media, forums. So there are possibilities for that if you need that financial support to be able to do this, because I want to make this accessible. The whole idea is that this is a community, and so we're working together, and so I'm open to the idea of exchange. However, I still have concrete costs, so if you can't afford to do this, if you can afford to make a monthly payment, if you can afford to make the payments in advance, that helps me to continue to do this work, and so I greatly appreciate it. There's 3 of the modules here. I think there's another one there. Yeah. So the modules, we're starting middle of July and we'll be ending in December before the holidays. I know it gets crazy that time of the year. And then our next module will start in February, and we'll go February to July, and then August to January. And again, we'll have some time off in here, and then March to August. About every 6 or 7 months, I'm going to try to have some sort of a retreat. It is optional, but if you can join us, it's going to deepen your experience and just make it that much more applicable to your life. So I need to know what your questions are. So please send me an email if you're watching this later and you say, but Rebecca, you didn't talk about, I want to know, and whatever it is, let me know what your questions are. We're coming up, we're less than 2 weeks before we begin. So please let me know your questions soon, and I'll send you an email back. I'll put them on the website. But I would love for this, if it feels like a good fit for you, I would love for you to join me and this community of people who are ready to dive in a little bit deeper than we do in our day-to-day life, who are ready for a transformation within themselves, within their families, and their communities. I am doing this because I have seen in my own personal life the impact of this work. I've seen the changes in myself and in my family, and in our ability to connect with one another, to handle the rough spots, because that's really what attachment is about. It's about how we move through those difficult situations. And so I encourage you that if you feel called to be part of this movement, part of this opportunity for us as world citizens to help more of us be connected, whether it's in our own small sphere of family, whether it's larger within our community, whether this is what we're doing professionally, whatever it is that you feel called to do. If it feels like you are being called to be part of this movement, to help the world change and be more compassionate and connected. And for those people who are trying to be connected and who are having trouble, I don't think that there's anything more important in the world than helping those families to connect. And that's what I do in my work every day, is I help families connect more deeply with themselves and with each other. So if you feel called, if you've got questions, send me an email. If you are ready to join us, please go ahead and join us. Reserve your spot. I only have 20, and if you're interested in a scholarship, a partial scholarship, then let me know. Just send me an email and we'll set up a time to talk and figure that out. So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope to see you in the training.